Hi, everybody. It's Jeb. This and the previous episode were recorded back-to-back and both suffered from an equipment error. As such, Dave's audio might sound a little airier and noisier than you're used to. In the spirit of our times, pretend that we don't regret this error, that we are in fact proud of it, specifically because it makes a third, unrelated person extremely mad. Welcome to the new moral economy, baby.
You know what time of year it is? It's Christmas time. I gotta tell you something real about Christmas. Fuck you if you don't like Christmas. Fuck you if you don't like Christmas. Yeah, that's right. It's not even about Jesus. It's about the holiday. You gotta respect the holiday.
Kids, remember how I had that Hallmark podcast with your Uncle David? It broadcast from the beautiful Uncanny Valley and was called It's Christmas Town. Your Uncle Charles said we were your source for highlights and analysis of the films of the Hallmark Network, and your Aunt Sarah Kate called them movies made for the gentlest of people. I am Jeb London, not Bob Saget or Neil Patrick Harris, and have you met Dave Roth? Merry Christmas, Dave.
Merry Christmas, Jeb.
I'm doing How I Met Your Mother. It's a thing.
I like it. That's pretty good. I like the idea of my Aunt Sarah Kate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not one of the kids. I don't know who the kids would be.
I'm not sure either. I'm trying to think. An array of every Moppet that we've encountered over the 309 Hallmark movies that we've watched.
It would have to be that because, I think, with the exception of maybe Jamie, I don't think we have any guests who are under 40. So
it's fine. People like that. They get upset. It's like with casting a Hallmark movie. If you cast anybody or if you invite anybody that's like too distractingly like someone that you might see in a city, it kills the vibe.
Yeah, I don't know. Since we don't have kids, I don't know what an accurate hail would be at the start of the episode. Like glucosamine?
Is that what people are naming their kids now?
That and chondroitin, I think.
Chondroitin. Yeah, that was a good little bit, though. The whole movie is kind of doing How I Met Your Mother-y types. There's some plot dynamics going on in this one. I had no idea what we were getting into. I just recorded it because I remember Julie Warner getting out of a lake in Dock Hollywood, and I was like, nice.
Your commitment to remembering Doc Hollywood is, I think, one of the through notes of the show.
I'm never gonna stop.
We did this last time. I believe I saw it once at the Twin Cities Theater in the Twin Cities, Florida, of Niceville and Valparaiso. In one of those.
Yeah, everyone knows what you mean by when you say Twin Cities. It's the common usage. Yeah. Niceville and Valparaiso?
That's right, yeah. Jesus. Home of the Golden Eagles.
I was going to say real Ohio Valley Conference ass town name ways there, but all right.
Hey, we won state in like 89 or something like that. Not quite the impact on the football world that Fort Walton Beach High School winning state in like 93 with Danny Wuerffel had on, yeah.
Now we're just dropping names on the podcast.
Danny Wuerffel, famous as quarterback for the Washington I think we all know. Nothing else that he did in between those two that I can recall.
No, nothing of note. Do you want to bleep when you said back there?
Sure, yeah.
Drop that on there? Yeah.
That's why that happened, if you heard the beep. That's the woke beep. Podcast gone woke.
I won't even let you say the slurs on the Christmas podcast anymore.
The woke beep virus. So yeah, the reason why we're doing the How I Met Your Mother thing is that Lindsay Fonseca, who everybody probably remembers most for being the daughter and in those opening segments of How I Met Your Mother, where older Ted, Bob Saget, is addressing his kids, is our lead in this. And I had no idea what to expect. So yeah, I didn't have the Doc Hollywood impulse. Like, I guess maybe all the really hot stuff that happened in Doc Hollywood happened when somebody opened a door at the old Twin Cities cinema and the light was cast on the screen. And I was like, I wouldn't understand or know that there was potentially nudity.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect it because the movie was not rated R, but that's tough. I might have delayed your burgeoning sexuality from emerging into full bloom by as many as 3 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, we still got the Sears catalog, so there were a lot of bras in there.
Oh, don't worry. It was burgeoning. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I was aware of the maiden form, if you know what I mean.
Burgeoning AF, thanks to the maiden. Yeah, well, I mean, if you subscribe to Sports Illustrated for the sports, and then once a year, Kathy Ireland in the Seychelles. Beautiful Kathy.
That's not even a top. That's just a sarong.
I know. Are you allowed to do that? That was a question I went to my parents with. I didn't know who else to ask.
This is clearly a nipple. Take this away.
Yeah, does this count as because I feel like that is not a bathing suit. That is just a t-shirt that she wore in the water. Someone should have told Stacey Williams. Well, look, we're not going to talk about Stacey Williams. That's not what we're here to talk about.
So, all right, we watched Where Are You, Christmas? Where Are You, Christmas?
Where are you, Christmas?
Where are you, Christmas? From 2023. This movie was basically Pleasantville, but Hallmark, and
Yes.
I was not expecting that at all.
Me either. And so I don't think I should apologize because I actually thought it was pretty good. But it was definitely one of those things that I was recording. I wouldn't want to say it was a spree or that I did it in a fugue state. I just was going through Hallmark, which at this point, from now until the end of the Countdown to Christmas countdown,
We're counting down.
We are doing that. Like usually they'll just show Murder, She Wrote all night long and all night strong.
Yeah.
Just 12 hours of it. And that's not the case anymore. It is just movies, movies, movies from now until the end of the year. Some of them, older, but most of them movies like this from 2023 and 2024 when they had been at historic highs of production. And, obviously we couldn't catch even half of them. Right now they're making more football themed movies than you and I could possibly watch.
Just on terms of recommendations from listeners that are very good, including like the Bruce Campbell one and then the Jason Kelsey or whichever Kelsey is. Yeah, we're like 6 behind. I'm not happy about it.
We've turned up the speed on the conveyor belt that we use to produce these podcasts. You and I are both extremely frazzled. Neither one of us has been able to take a bathroom break for days. But we are, I think, back in fighting form here. I worried when we recorded our last one that I had sort of forgotten how to do it or forgotten how to feel about Hallmark movies. And this one, I think, kind of got me back. It made me feel like I was in shape because this one's pretty weird and they're like trying some stuff. But I was able to get into the sort of like Hallmark memory palace and sort of think about all the skills that I've developed, I guess if that's the word for it, or defects that I've developed over years of watching these movies. And it made it a little more legible than it might otherwise have been.
Well, first of all, I will say it's like riding a bike that has 4 training wheels on it.
Yes, it is. It has little tassels and a bell.
And second of all, after finishing this movie, I thought, well, what am I going to talk about? And then I realized that I have so many skills that I sat down and I filled out my little notes for the show. And I was like, that's a ton. At the moment when I started, I was like, what am I going to do? Talk for 15 minutes? And I thought, after sitting down, I was like, I can bloviate about this possibly forever.
You know what, Jeb? You're not alone, brother.
Let's go hit the head and we'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll grab this one by the horns, Dave.
Yeah.
As I said before the break, we watched 2023's Where Are You, Christmas? And before we start talking about the movie, we're going to have to give you a little bit of a plot. And before we do that, I'm going to have to tell you who is in this thing. So, as I said before the break, Lindsay Fonseca, who you probably know from How I Met Your Mother, plays Addie, a Chicago-based marketer. Michael Rady, who we've seen in Christmas at Pemberley Manor, episode 33, Pride and Prejudice and Fascism. Boy, I love the fact that that's relevant again.
One of those funny jokes you make.
It's timeless. And You're Baking Me Crazy, episode 85, Welcome Back to Persimmon Chat, plays Hunter, a veteran and auto mechanic. Jim O'Hare, who's been in a ton of these and a ton of basically everything, but who you probably know primarily as Jerry Gergich from Parks and Recreation, plays Addie's father, Nick. Julie Warner, best known to Dave from Doc Hollywood and best known to me as the Tiger Mom on both fertility meds and birth control in a season 2 episode of House, plays Addie's mom, Sharon. Andrew David Bridges plays Addie's brother, Connor, a police officer. Mandy Masden plays Addie's pal, Dana, a school teacher. Melanie Sutrathada is Sienna, Connor's girlfriend. Mitch Poulos plays Dr. Rago, I can't remember. Alvin Keith plays Mayor Matt. And Joanna Carpenter plays Suma, Addie's doctor friend from Chicago. Now it is time to take the expositional challenge. That means I have a minute to get this plot out. I do get a grace period, and if I hit 69 seconds exactly, that counts because that's the sex number. If it goes well, you hear the club horn. If it goes badly, you hear the Price is Right thing. David, are you ready to time me?
Yes, I am, Jeb. I'll start when you start.
As I said, Addie is a Chicago-based marketer, and every Christmas she spends time in the Maldives because she does not want to go home. But her brother Connor calls her and says, guess what? I'm going to propose to my girlfriend at the Christmas pageant, so you've got to come home and be here for that. So she goes home. She's having trouble with her car, but she gets there, and her dad is immediately just catty as fuck about how she's never home. Mom is just going berserk, baking everything, and Addie's just kind of overwhelmed. And she winds up going and talking to a guy she goes to talk to Hunter, who is a mechanic because there's something wrong with her car. And she's been designing this app for a store that is basically Amazon. And she makes a wish that Christmas didn't exist. And then boom, she wakes up in black and white. And then from then on, she and Hunter have got to reinstill the spirit of Christmas in everyone, which eventually brings her closer together with her dad. She kisses Hunter, Connor proposes, and everybody lives happily ever after in Technicolor.
Whoa, 59.64 seconds. You got it in under a minute.
Hell yeah.
And kind of a lot of stuff happens in this, so good work, man. There you go. How's that? Did you like it?
I do like it. Did I miss anything big?
No. There's some little twists and turns and stuff like that, but really, like, what happens in this movie is that they set up all of the things that are going to happen to Addie and her family while she's there. And then eventually all of those things happen. But in between, there is like Pleasantville Jr. happens. Did you mention that everybody turns black and white when she wishes that Christmas doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. Like, there's plot-wise, not a whole lot else. And then even the sort of like, Stations of the Crossies type, trauma swappy, all the Stegman shit. There isn't really very much of that either.
Yeah, there is. It's pretty tame. And I think part of the reason why there isn't as much of it is this movie is larded with metacognition of the fact that it's a Hallmark movie.
Yeah. So how did that sit with you? I was willing to allow a certain amount of it because some of it is kind of playful, but we've talked in the past about how like that is just the one thing you can't do when you're making a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, if I can poach one of your exemplars here, it is way too much. So that happened for my taste in this. The first couple times it was cute and I liked it because, I mean, we're all complicit in this. We all know what we're watching, right? Like,
there's no ethical consumption during the countdown to Christmas countdown. We're counting them down.
I have nog on my hands. You have nog on your hands, right? But then as they started using it as a crutch to make something funny that wasn't funny, it's like it wasn't paired with a joke. If it had been funnier, I wouldn't have minded all the metatextual stuff. But in a lot of cases, it was the way that bad and not particularly funny writers of the Whedon-esque variety use it, which is that like, do you recognize this thing? That's funny, right? Like, no, that's actually just recognition. That's not comedy.
Yeah.
Holy crap, Lois. Remember when this happened? Like, yes. And is there a joke in the remembrance? No. So you're just telling me about this structure. And the fact that I can go, I recognize that doesn't mean that I'm entertained by it.
Yeah. I think that that's the real sort of difference. So the one bit that I liked well enough, because it is actually a joke, is when Christmas disappears from the town of Red Lake Falls, there is a bit in there where mom and dad are like, getting excited for, that night. They're going to start the big New Year's movie countdown.
New Year's movie marathon?
Yes. Every year they make like 100 New Year's movies and they start airing them in June.
That's a gag.
Yes.
Like, hats off. It's fine. And I liked it. I laughed. I thought it was good. The rest of it, though, is like that crucial difference between, and I think this is kind of like, not to bring the absolute vibe killingest guy possible into this, but this is like, how people talk about how like Elon doesn't understand how to post or doesn't understand what like a meme is?
Yes.
He's constantly duffing simple memes. That's the issue there, is that like, if you have like what Dave Barry used to call a humor impairment, like you just are not capable of like processing a joke as a joke. The thing that would be funny to you is seeing something and being like, yes, I understand what that is. And then simply proceeding accordingly. Whereas I think in this case, like when it's used to make a joke, which is not all the time, but some of the time, it's good. And when it is not, it is the sort of thing that, again, like Hallmark is just not really cut out to do. Like it can't critique itself, in a funny way.
Right.
But I do think that the parts of it, so like comedy wise, this didn't necessarily deliver. And yet I think the idea of Christmas that's in it is one of the nicer ideas of Christmas that we've encountered.
Yeah, I have no problem with the subject matter or with their attempt at tackling it. It was just sort of how they executed what we would think of as more of a finer point, because these things don't necessarily have to be funny. There are plenty of ones that are good that are, that we have given a 5 that are just straight up like, that's a sincere movie. I'm thinking of the one with Jamie King and Luke McFarlane.
Yeah, the Holiday Date or whatever it's called.
No, it's the Mistletoe Promise or the Mistletoe.
Oh, yes, Mistletoe. Yes, but it is like, and that's a straight up gimmicky romance thing where everybody's pretending to be dating somebody else and all that shit.
And there's actual trauma. I think, he grew up an orphan and she lost her family in a car accident or something. Or I don't know, maybe that was the original.
That was the original.
book.
The original book was insane. It had like a crazy number of body count in it. Whereas like in the movie, it was basically like them going to the mall.
Right. Going to the Manchu Walk. Anyway, that was a good movie that we both willingly gave a 5. And there's no point at which it kids the material or they're really trying to do any kind of eye-rolly or shticky stuff. So like, I think this movie would have been just as good without that stuff. But the bones of it still work. And like, if you're going to, continue to examine like, what does Christmas mean? And you're going to do it 40 times a year. Thank you for taking a whack at it with this model,
Yeah, it's at least, I don't know. So I give them some points for originality. And the black and white stuff actually looks fine. Like, you never want to be in the position of making a Hallmark movie where a great deal of CGI and technical stuff is involved, because, brother, that is not in the budget.
Right.
And yet, I think it's like more or less okay.
Yeah, and they played it as funny as you can do it, where she just keeps asking people, like, doesn't that look weird to you? And they're looking around at the black and white like, no, that's normal. I did think it was weird when she was driving with Hunter and they pulled over and that guy was like, got a light.
Yeah,
but
that was, I didn't understand a lot of that.
It was really unpacking a lot of like the fundamental horror of the post-war suburban vision of America, I think.
Yeah, that's why I think this really is one of, if this is the last Hallmark movie that David Lynch directs, it will be quite a capper.
There is a fundamental horror too, like the fact that he was trying to actually light candles on the tree. Like, that's a tradition we don't need to go back to. That Douglas fir is going up like a bomb, honestly, in that living room.
Imagine he gets on the radio and does the horse is the white of the eye thing, but it's just like the lyrics to Frosty the Snowman read in that voice.
The nog, drink deep and descend. Anyway, do we need to actually like break this down now?
No,
do we need to do that seriously?
Podcast is over.
Yeah.
We're all set.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody.
Yeah, we can give it a shot. I mean, I think this is going to be like the last one where there's just a lot of there's not an angel, there's a lot of tropes or whatever, but it's worth talking about.
Wow. You're awfully confident. I'm going to impeach that assertion right after this break.
Ooh.
So as you can imagine, this movie stood out pretty well plot-wise, which you would think would make our segments not very necessary. After all, we're helping to break these movies down and differentiate them, and this one doesn't really need that much differentiation. But this is our hobby horse, and we're riding that animal into the ground. So, as ever, our first one is Spot the Angel, and we're going to watch until the first act break, and we'll take a guess as to whether anybody here is supernaturally kind in the religious sense, like an actual angel, or a secular sense, like Santa, or just the sort of person who ties the whole neighborhood together. David, you were saying before the break, you didn't think there was one. State your case, and I'm going to blow it the fuck up.
Wow. Okay. So for me, the idea of there being an angel would imply that there is a character that is somehow not just in control, but like sitting above and outside of the incident in this. And I don't think that there is, while there are characters obviously that are kind of tropey, and then there's other characters like the mayor who are just operatically weird and kitschy in ways that sort of mark them as standing out. I didn't think that the plot necessarily worked like that. Like, everybody turned black and white, and then everybody turns back.
No, you are technically correct. My answer is technically incorrect. But while I don't think the movie intends it, I think it's her dad, because Jim O'Heir plays the voice of the Santa on the app. I'm almost 100% certain that's him. So I put it to you, that she unwittingly imbued the Quick Ship Santa app with her father's spirit of Christmas, which is so great that it conveyed supernatural powers to her phone and then was able to change the color spectrum of reality as well as everybody's memory.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
So Jerry Gergich is the ghost in the machine, is what you're saying.
Right.
Well, that is way more interesting than anything that's actually in this movie. So I have no choice but to allow it.
Yes. I got one. All right. So the next one is Eat Your Heart Out. And that's where we look at the food in this. And if it's just kind of, standard Hallmark, there's way too much of it. That part is unnecessary. Or if it does wind up playing a role thematically, there was not a lot in this one. I'm hoping you caught some things I didn't, because I like it when the food is weird.
So there isn't that much, which is unfortunate. The one bit that I have flagged in here is that at the very beginning, when we're still in Chicago and Addie is out with Suma, and they're at a fancy cocktail bar, and you can't see what Suma is drinking, but Addie seems to have ordered 10,000 flushes up with a twist.
So she orders a Jack Frost and Suma orders a peppermint twist. And you do actually see Suma's. It is red, like somebody melted down like 12 rolls of cherry lifesavers and put them in a glass. But like I literally in my notes have it as tidy bowl blue for the Jack Frost.
It is, we disagreed on which turns your toilet water a different color product it is, but I think it means something that we both saw that and we're like, don't drink that. That's for making sure that there's not like mineral deposits on the inside of your bowl. Right.
Like the nicest thing it could be is Romulan ale, something that doesn't exist, and everything else is something that goes where you poop.
Yep. It's just like ordering that blue Curacao straight up.
Oh, God.
So Suma's drink, what you're describing, I didn't have that in my notes. That definitely makes sense that it would be red. It reminds me of when Defector went to Atlantic City for our offsite. Some of my coworkers went to Rainforest Cafe for one of their dinners. And a lot of the stuff you can get there is like, they'll give it to you in a commemorative thermos type thing. I don't know. It has a straw. And like most of those drinks, they're non-alcoholic, but it is just like the liquid version of cherry Jolly Ranchers. Like I had a sip of a coworker's one and maybe I'm like out of shape or whatever, but it tasted like the syrup that you would add fizzy water to make soda. Like it was just like chokingly sweet. And if that's the drink that Suma is drinking, then the thing that Lindsay Fonseca is drinking there, I guess if we were to understand that it is supposed to be some sort of mentholated drink, maybe that's better. But otherwise, I think like if it's as blue raspberry ass as it looks, you shouldn't be drinking that. That is not safe. You'd be better off with Tidy Bowl.
Going to the snow cone guy and going, you know what, I'm going to have a raspberry up.
Yep. With nothing.
So we did have two other ones. One is Dr. Rago still keeps candy canes in his pocket, which was just like, you're in Christmas Town, all right. And then the bit that I thought was good, at least for, you didn't actually see the food, but it was a food commentary that worked thematically with the plot when they're in the black and white Christmasless universe. And she has yet to persuade her family that Christmas is a thing. And like Dad Nick / Jerry Gergich is saying like Christmas, like with this incredulous look on his face. She says, Mom, of course you always bake everything for Christmas. You're making pies and stuff. And Mom says, well, I can go to the store if you want some cookies. And it was like, yes, that's how perverted the non-Christmas universe is. Mom isn't going to make the cookies. She's like, I'll just buy them from the Publix bakery.
You like EL fudge, right? That's the type of cookie you like to get?
Yeah. Keebler work for you?
Yeah, is that good? Little stripy chocolate kind? That's cool. That's about what you deserve because it's not a holiday and it's not important.
Yeah. Are you dating a Navy veteran? Because it's Chips Ahoy for you.
Yeah. I like the idea of, obviously you would not show this movie in the theater. You really should not do that. But the idea of that line, it's like getting gasps and walkouts from the Hallmark Film Festival crowd. Like it's just more than they can take.
Right. Like the jury at Hallmark Con, which is like held in Branson, I guess. Yeah. Just everybody's shaking their head and ahead of time, like this is not going to be a finalist.
Just that landing like one of the like wound sex scenes from David Cronenberg's Crash. Like, I didn't know people could do such things. Cookies from the store?
Perverse. Okay, for this one, I'm going to assume that you do have multiple answers. It's the Hallmark Expanded Universe, and that's other Hallmark movies or events you could see interacting with this movie's players or events, or vice versa. Dave, this is in Chicago/Chicagoland. That's pretty abundant territory for us. How did you work with it?
There's a lot going on there. I was thinking more in terms of characters than locale, although it is, as you pointed out, like, given that Chicago has been a metonym for reactionary America's vision of like everything that is wrong with the country, kind of are a lot of Hallmark movies set in Chicago. And it's a lovely town. The people are stupid about it.
It's a hell of a town.
It's a hell of a, we love it. We love our Chicago Bulls. We love Kobe White.
We love Jerry Reinsdorf.
We do. He's a friend. But in this case, a friend of the pod, executive producer Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yep, that's why it comes out irregularly. It's not very satisfying. No, strike that.
Everybody hates it. We flirted with the record for most L's in a season of a podcast last year, but ultimately we're unable to really clear the bar.
Are you going to put it on the board? No.
No. Well, it's good. People have been asking, when are you going to do the Hawk Harrelson thing?
Boom, there it is. Episode 136.
211 episodes in. We finally did it. The thing that I was thinking of was, so Hunter is a veteran and is as close to a traumatized war vet as we've seen in a Hallmark movie. Usually when you get a veteran in a Hallmark movie, it's just somebody that you're supposed to, as a member of the audience, thank for their service.
Yes.
And they're kind of hunky and they like goof around with their friends, but they don't. Michael Ratty, pretty good actor, cries convincingly in this, but at one point he's talking about, I'm proud of my service, but I saw things over there, things that no one should see. First admission, I guess, in any of these movies that like war is disgusting and bad, and not just like a way to signal how normal you are as a male in a Hallmark movie.
Yeah, when you put your hand in a pile of goo that used to be your friend's face and there's a David Cronenberg actor just doing some other stuff with the rest of it. Yeah.
Yep, not what you want. In this case, though, I had the idea that that he would maybe, in order to improve himself as he continues to move his way back towards being a member of society again, that maybe he could be in a men's encounter group with the other seriously traumatized men that we've seen in these Hallmark movies, like just him and like a furious Logan Echolls sitting on folding chairs and drinking shitty coffee and talking about all of the traumas that they've absorbed.
Nice. Or who was the guy who played Riley, the one we did with Jessica Ritchie just a bit ago, Riley from Buffy.
Yes. Shit. I know what you're talking about.
He was an NCAA basketball player. You love talking about him.
Oh yeah, Mark Blucas. He's close personal friends with Tim Duncan. You're right. I do love talking about that.
Right.
Yeah.
They're there with like the other guy. There's another guy we did one with Sarah Kate where it just sort of upended our 9/11 theory. And they all have like
that was Brandon Routh in that one, I believe.
Yes, that was one. But this one was even more literal because it was somebody in the plot who had admitted that he had enlisted right after 9/11. And it was the one where they kept adopting like shelter dogs. So I just imagine they're all sort of like they're drinking shitty coffee and there's like the mostly rated carton of Dunkin' on the table, and they're just all petting golden retrievers and just going like, I don't know. I really wanted to be with somebody who like caroled, The
holidays are hard. Yes, the holidays are hard. The holidays are hard. Yes.
Yeah. I remember when we used to go out beyond the line wassailing. I just went ahead and I decided, all right, I'm going to run the table of all the references that people will be happy to hear and remember, or maybe happy to have like a listening list to go back. So I think that since we're in Chicago, Addie would clearly be working hand in hand with the people at both Cartwright's department store and the Radcliffe Center to get Cartwright's toys in the Quick Shop online store, and then those toys in half-open Quick Shop bags beneath the Radcliffe Center Christmas tree. And I can only assume that the Quick Shop app development was underwritten by Erica Christensen's CEO character, Kitten.
Yes.
And that Addie spends her time hanging out with the old money families of the Chicago elite. So just there, that's episode 1, the Radcliffe Center presents Miss Christmas. Episode 4, My Dinner with Noel. Episode 27, Merce King of Fried Chicken. And episode 60, Horse Whisperer has come unstuck in time.
That's just a rough overview of the Chicago stuff. There's other ones. There's a whole Denver thing that they got going on. Enjoy the back catalog, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the first 60. And the second 60, which I did not obsessively re-listen to out of neurotic worry about like, where can I figure out how to do it better? Like, I have not committed those to memory the way I did. There could be like 12 movies set in Chicago from episode 61 to this one that I've just been like, I don't know what happened. We need an intern to make an interactive map.
Yeah. Although I think that would look insane.
Yes.
Like the idea of like just trying to plot it all out. Obviously, if you were going by where they were actually shot, it's just like one really big red dot over Metro Toronto and then another one in like whatever, Greater British Columbia, Vancouver, Whistler, Metroplex. That's that.
And then one in St. Petersburg, Florida.
One in St. Petersburg, Florida. We have seen some of them were shot in Utah, but yes.
There was one in Ohio. That was the Mariah Carey one.
Was actually shot in Ohio, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
anyway. So it's overdetermined. And that's the part of the movie where you already know what the stakes are, what the likely development is for a certain character, what is about to ensue and what it means. And yet Hallmark does not trust your instincts and puts its thumb on the scale. There were a couple times in this. Actually, I'll just be straight with you, Dave. I have like 4 possible entries for this, but I don't know which one will carry the day, but I want to hear yours first.
There are kind of a lot of them there. Because the sort of like the central dramatic problem of this is solved through people remembering what they like about Christmas and then becoming themselves again. There is a lot of stuff about what Christmas is all about and what the purpose of it is and like how to be a good person. And again, I will say that it was like decently handled in the sense that none of it was super cloying or felt like AI generated in the way that the worst of it can, but it is all laid on very heavy. So I'm just going to read a few quotes that I have here. There's a lot of literal, like, isn't that what Christmas is all about? When Dana turns normal again after remembering making a Christmas sweater, the dialogue there is literally, what happened to you? I remembered Christmas.
Nice.
And so that aspect of it is, it's kind of like, I know. It's like, we're like 50 minutes into the movie at this point. Like, you don't need to tell me what's happening. I'm aware of it. So if you assume that they're all that type of overdetermined, there's like a half dozen of them for sure. But I don't think there was much beyond that necessarily stood out. What did you have?
In most of these cases, there isn't a specific incident. There's the traditional about halfway through, we get the not quite trauma swap, but it is definitely a familiar and labored conversation about what's wrong with each other. So we have basically Hunter and Addie talking about what Addie's life in Chicago is like. And we hear,
what do you do?
I work in branding, Christmas campaigns. I help shape what people think they want.
How do you know what other people want when you don't even know what you want yourself?
Yeah, there's another one in there where she says, I help shape what people want. Which, again, I appreciate a movie that is like jaundiced towards branding as an industry and a concept.
Yes.
That said, I don't know, step it up a little bit.
Yeah, Hunter's wheeling on her just feels way more hostile than it needs to be. And it feels like that was an acting choice made in service of maintaining this very familiar midpoint hinge than in what the plot would necessitate. Like, it is the most critical he is of her the entire movie. And, he's just going straight for like, well, isn't what you do a lie and pointless?
Yep.
And also structurally, the meta aspect of the mayor and the entire town started to feel like they just committed to a bit and then they would not undo it. Like, it started to feel like we were in a live action wholesome, humorless version of Springfield, where everybody is one inciting incident away from mass hysteria and rioting, except it's just sort of like they're waiting for Christmas to break out. So like in every scene of the town, you just have almost everyone in it milling around a street that has no traffic on it.
Yeah.
Waiting.
The town itself also is kind of uncanny looking. Like, it looks more like one of those like little pop-up Christmas markets that you see in parks in big cities than it does like an actual downtown. Like, unless this is, the rare like car-free, dense, walkable suburban environment. It doesn't quite make sense. There's something uncanny about it. I do agree that the idea of there are always a lot of people around, which I like in Hallmark movies, because there's a part of me, again, this is just how much watching these movies has broken me. I'm like, ooh, this looks expensive.
Right.
That must be 24 extras on this set.
Right. Although, yeah, and the uncanniness of the town, like it really does feel in those background shots, like if you just pursued, the roadway, you followed it a little bit more and took a right, you would just have warehouses. Like it doesn't look like a little hamlet, a Stars Hollow-y kind of place. It really does look like they just said, but the gazebo goes there.
Yeah.
And then there's like a gym building and, some other kind of storage. And like, that's the town center.
Yeah, there's something uncanny about it, which I'm glad that you also picked up on that, because it's like, it's sort of in my notes, but it's not useful. Like I'm looking down at something now that's just like, the town is weird.
Yeah.
Great point, Dave. Thank you for writing that down. I could not possibly have remembered this, but it is fucking weird. The gazebo's not near anything. It's just all confounding. And yeah, the idea of it being, I'm not going to give away too much of the crossover and stuff, but there is, when Addie in a rage tries to leave the town on Christmas Eve, she's just like, fuck this, I'm going back to Chicago, where everybody is black and white and doesn't care about their families or whatever. And she can't leave. She gets stuck in like a loop and keeps like showing back up in town. Yeah,
it snaps her back, like almost like she's being beamed back to it by the transporter or something.
Yeah. So there are those elements of like, it's going to sound really stupid, but your kind of magical realism aspects of it that are some of them shaded heavier than others, and some of which to me feel like basically indebted to horror movies. Mm-hmm. And the town having a kind of like, designed by MC Escher element to its like metro area is, I don't know, that fits.
It's like all the town's main address is like 1 recursive loop, 5 recursive loop, 10 recursive loop. You can make a case for that being overdetermined too, because she tries to quit and the plot literally will not allow her to quit.
Yeah.
And the quit is just telegraphed. She's like, that's it. I'm out of here for the first time. She hasn't been able to get her friend on the phone at any point, and rather than just getting in a car and seeing if like there's still a second Hugh in Chicago, she's just there until at the last minute that now it's completely necessary. Anyway, I did have 2 more. Right. One is just the leaden aspect of Dad Nick being catty with Addie over her not coming back, to the point where, she makes this little observation.
I didn't know Mr. Blakeney had died.
Well, life still goes on here when you're not around, Addie.
And you're like, fuck. I mean, this is one of the meanest dads they've ever had.
Really? I don't keep an internal ranking. I should. But it for sure. And it's tough too, because Jim O'Heir is such a fucking teddy bear of an actor. Like he's just a very a pleasing presence to me. And yet, he's not given until, obviously then we get the sort of trauma swap between him and Addie, like nearer to the end, where they're explaining, how they actually value each other and what their pain is. And it's, nicely performed. But until then, it's like, he doesn't seem sad or hurt. Like he just is nasty. And you're right that like catty is the term for it. Like he's not withdrawn or anything. He's like kind of aggressive, but also, and maybe this is just the way that he's styled too. It's like Jiminy Glicky. Like he's just kind of this round, mean bitch in scenes.
That's what really stands out, is you're just not used to Hallmark characters of any stripe saying just the meanest thing they can think of in any given circumstance. And instead, here you have the dad who's just a giant teddy bear, just ringing Addie up over and over and over.
Absolutely.
Like you can just hear the ding of the ring bell every time he makes contact with her head.
Anytime you see a character that's like that in a Hallmark movie too, it's like, I'm trying to think of the one with like 2 chefs in love where they bring Perry Gilpin in out of the bullpen and she's just throwing 101. No one can fucking touch it. It's got the glove side run. Nobody can handle it. But this is like, they will find somebody who's like good at being mean and they're like, just do your thing. Like you gotta do that. Like in this case, they cast a guy who is best known for being the kindest and most put upon guy in a beloved sitcom. And turn him loose as a big old jerk.
With a huge penis and Morgan Fairchild for a wife.
Yeah, I think it's like Christy Brinkley, isn't it?
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I thought it was Morgan Fairchild.
But canonically, yes, Jerry Gergich is home.
Yes. But the one that really stuck with me was the sheer repetition, because we get, I think, maybe 15 minutes of the plot is Christmas? What's Christmas? Christmas isn't real. And Addie reacting to it more and more stridently to the point that she winds up going viral for her grabbing strangers in the town and asking them what their favorite carol is and dancing around them like it's midsummer.
Yeah, she's like acting like Donald Sutherland in the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes. And I understand that this would be traumatic for her, but after both her parents, her brother, the guy she just met, and like her friend have no fucking clue what she's talking about, the idea that she would break down and start asking people who have no reason to be civil or patient with her, what's your favorite Christmas carol? It's like, guys, it's time to move on. You've got 80 minutes to work with. I know you're going to compress a lot of human evolution and emotion at some point in this plot to just get on with it. Like, let that part breathe and just ditch this.
Yeah, I always have that feeling with these two because every Hallmark movie is basically the same length. I imagine listeners know this by now, but this one is listed at 84 minutes. They're almost all 83. So you don't really have time to mess around like that. Like, I mean, the movies do plenty of messing around and stuff. But there is, like, for me, when it's something like that, where it's like a bit that isn't great, that also goes on a little bit too long, in a movie that does have stuff that does work, there's a part of me that's just kind of like, well, just fucking lose it. Like, just do the stuff that's better. But I also don't imagine that these are the sort of, because they're all the same length, it's like, I imagine the screenplay is 83 pages long, you know? Like, it's just, there's not probably some extra bit they took out. But yeah, it is a drag.
Yeah, and it's a drag too, because like not only does it rely on the idea that Addie is so dim that she wouldn't have gotten the point, but like that I am. And like, I get it. I mean, I've seen these movies before. If you're going to have metacognition this much about the kind of movies that you're making, have some about the fact that we've all watched the time paradox thing where Marty goes back in time and suddenly there's a black family living in his house and there's graffiti everywhere and Biff is Donald Trump, right?
Yep.
So speaking of that, then let's do crossover. And that's what better or more entertaining mainstream fare you could see these characters or events getting ported into. There's a lot of what makes up mainstream fare. So there was a lot to play with, but I have a feeling that you're taking us in a horror direction again, which I'm very glad for. But please tell me, what did you have?
Well, this is kind of it's a book, first of all. I guess they did make a movie out of it, but Daniel Kahneman's short book, You Should Have Left, is basically about somebody going insane while their house sort of changes around them in a supernatural kind of way. And that plus but you don't want to say it's a book. A movie that I know that you love dearly, which has a great ending that I'm going to hint at without giving away, because anybody who hasn't seen it should see Cemetery Man.
Yes.
That was my thought on the ride out of town, was the idea of basically like you're trapped in some sort of like bizarre supernatural landscape that is trying to kill you and trying to make you insane. You try to escape, but there is, it is not constructed in a way that allows that to happen. That was the bit that I was sort of hoping for. I don't know. Sadly, there's no Nagi in this one. It would be nice. It would be nice to have a Nagi in one of these.
Yeah, especially for Yuletide. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like a Christmas nog, if you will. But that's basically where I was going with this, was the idea of like, taking this fairly low stakes, but like not as low as some of the stakes that we've seen Conceit, and then just like it had the sort of this is as scary as Hallmark movies are allowed to get. Like the concept of like there is no Christmas is again the sort of thing that would qualify as too scary for people to watch in the Hallmark universe.
So I have three things to say about your choice of Cemetery Man, besides thank you, but thank you, by the way.
Hey, no problem.
One is I should have known the other 11 days of Christmas don't exist. 2, Dana is my only living friend, and she's stealing my Noel. And 3, yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping last encore, he's got to do the Nagi sound. We love the Nagi sound.
So mine was, I was like, all right, if you're going to do Pleasantville, I want to see you wind up in Pleasantville, because I like the idea of having a bunch of social unrest between all the people in Pleasantville who are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Christmas is real.
Yeah.
We're not apostate or heretical for believing in that.
We just don't know what orgasms are yet. Yeah.
And then everybody from Red Lake is like, What the fuck are you talking about? Racial equality is real.
That actually would be good. There was like their rival camp from heavyweights across town, where it's just sort of like they think that like Pleasantville is lacking in spirit or whatever, but the Pleasantville people are like, that town is woke.
Yeah,
it's disgusting. Their mayor is a black guy.
Yeah, and then Red Lake is like, what? He's the mayor. What? And what is with the wreaths?
Yep. This is a powerful thought. There's much to think about here.
So this seems like one that we're probably going to have the same answer about. It just depends on how full the answer is. It's the Hallmark Voight-Kampff test. Were there indications that these characters are all full humans with real inner lives, or are they the Hallmark equivalent of skin jobs? In the immortal words of the test's inventor, listener Josh Burgle, if a male lead in this movie were to encounter a tortoise flipped over in the desert, what would he do? If you feel like the answer is feed the tortoise Christmas cookies, then you probably have a replicant. Dave, who is your replicant?
Fairly replicant-rich environment here, I think you will agree.
Yes, they're just walking around like Dawn of the Deck the Halls or whatever.
Yeah. So my choice among many is Connor, the police officer brother.
Okay.
Who's just a real stick in the mud. And I guess, whatever, he's playing a cop and stuff like that. But there is a bunch of characters that just sort of behave in these like drearily pre-programmed ways. That he is, maybe it's just the fact that he's wearing a police uniform. He was the one where every time he walked on, I was just like, this fucking guy, unbelievable. I bet you're going to be real, like, rude about this, aren't you? You're going to be weird because she thinks Christmas is real.
Yeah, that's, it's weird that you had that reaction too, Dave, because I can't imagine cops being bad people in black and white times.
Yes, it was different then. You would be in the community helping people.
Right, with your big hose.
Yep.
Just clearing the bridge.
Yep. Well, that's a very dark thing to bring into this. But who are yours? Did you have, you'd agree that there's like basically anybody up to and including Hunter fits if you want it.
This kind of feels like a cop-out answer because I think they want this to be the answer. But, I wrestled with it and I thought, well, even if Hallmark intends him to be the guy, that doesn't mean that he's not the guy, right? It's the mayor.
Yeah.
Who, like, it starts out with like the really funny sort of version of Hallmark, like, where do you live, sir?
Yeah.
Because he meets Addie and they have this exchange at the gazebo in the center of town that he is gussying up.
And the gazebo looks wonderful. It's like straight out of one of those Christmas movies.
That's what I was going for. It's all part of my Red Lake Falls Christmas campaign. Since you're the expert, how about you help me with my campaign branding?
Oh, you know what? I have a lot on my plate right now.
I want our town to be a year-round Christmas destination where folks can slow their fast-paced lives and appreciate the small things. Wait, smile! Oh, yes. I'm going to post this. #Christmasville. You can make this go viral, right?
I don't think it works that way.
That's great.
Like, he just does not listen to her answer. He's like, well, she works in marketing. She hits the viral button, which I'm paying for.
Yep.
And like, if it's over $100, a viral button comes up out of the console and she can hit it. And that's how we get virality. And this was, I think, a subtle use of our expectations and the meta awareness of Hallmark. When there is no Christmas, the mayor, it just has no toleration for people using public space.
Yeah. And he chases kids out of the gazebo. Because they don't have a permit.
You get out of there. You need a city permit to be in the gazebo. This is not your backyard.
Which I like, thank you for leaning on the gazebo.
Yeah.
If there is ever sort of a totem of being trapped in Hallmark mentality, it's that like the axis of the world runs from the sky down through this gazebo, through the center of the earth, and everything revolves from it,
Yes. I don't think that quite qualifies as them kidding the material, but I absolutely agree that there was something about like just hearing the idea. He doesn't say the words, you need a gazebo permit to use the gazebo, but a world where a gazebo permit exists and you have to go to the town hall and get it, like that is a funny, like if you're going to make a Hallmark movie that exists within a Hallmark movie, gazebo permits and load-bearing gazebos, like gazebos that basically function as the center of civic life in a town. It's a good bit. Like that certainly is Hallmark to the very highest degree.
You know, I would love to see a Google trend map of our entire lives just for usage of the word gazebo.
I think you and I are way outliers.
Oh,
just
yeah.
because of this. I don't really say it that much.
It's like late 70s to 2018, in a relatively flat line, and then it just erupts for the next 6 years.
Yep. Basically, it would spike only in like whenever we get a wild hair and start recording these. But yes, it is. You could basically tell when we are talking about a Hallmark movie. If like, I don't think I've said the word gazebo not into a podcast mic in maybe my entire life.
But then the moment that actually finally trips, they're like, okay, the mayor's all the way over, because you would think that once everything is restored, people could sort of be chill and just enjoy Christmas and stop really kidding the material. He sort of rejoices in having had a really wonderful pageant and Connor and his girlfriend getting engaged. And he says,
Wonderful speech, Hunter. And I am so glad the way things turned out in the end. It's like one of those Christmas movies. This is the perfect story for my Red Lake Falls Christmas Capital blog. Now we just need someone to fall in love and kiss.
Yeah.
No, sir. Too far, sir. Too far.
Then he like prances off screen as well.
Yeah. Like always twirling toward romance.
Yeah. Acting like a damn wood sprite. Sir, you are an elected official.
All right. So we come to who's the real villain. So Hallmark usually has a bad guy in these movies, and they're pretty predictable, but a lot of times because they can't really honestly engage with the subject matter of their movies, there's an unintentional bad guy that's far truer lurking in the background. David, did you see a villain that Hallmark didn't anticipate that really sort of underlines what we're dealing with?
The one that I have, and I think there's probably, a number of them, thematically, the movie is very rich.
Indeed.
But Jim O'Hare's character, Dad's inability to deal with the sort of shame and fear that he feels about being forgotten by his daughter, his fear of that, and that making him first very mean and then later a reactionary who convenes an emergency town board meeting banning Christmas decorations in an attempt to stop the sort of revolution of Christmas spirit in there. There is almost in that, like if you want to be annoying about it, you can make a point about American political culture and how the suburbs have lost their mind and sort of radicalized themselves in a lot of ways through history. I would keep the critique more to men's inability to process shame, but I do think that that's kind of at the center of what makes him very nearly a villain for the back third of the movie.
That's such a better answer than what I had.
Oh,
I like
really?
that. Yeah, that's, I think, more nuanced and empathetic, and probably something that people should take forward from this with a great deal more seriousness than mine, which was just that Addie has stopped caring about Christmas as Christmas, and it's just been gamified by work for her. But like work, they don't say she works for Amazon.
Yeah.
But she works for Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
So she has at, 18 minutes, I now see Christmas for what it really is, convincing people to buy things. They kind of play it as she made a choice to do this, which, she may well have, but like that is just the structure of the profession that she's in. There is no greater value to it than that. And Hallmark wants to kind of tiptoe up to anti-commercialism, but not quite walk all the way through the door.
Yeah.
And so like this could have been more of a searing indictment of like Amazonia than it was. But I still think yours is a lot better.
Well, I appreciate that. I think yours is good though. And it does sort of like go back to a thing that we've like sort of noted in these in the past. This actually hasn't really been something we've seen in the last few movies for a while now, where there's always been this kind of like work is bullshit. It makes you be like a smaller, sadder person than you are. Like that's like a recurring Hallmark thing. And like, it's not political in any sort of meaningful way, because the cure for it is just like putting on pajamas and holding a mug of hot cocoa with both hands with kind of a dreamy look on your face. Although who's to say, like, that's still, you know, it beats, you know, whatever, like work from home, infinite 12-hour day experiences for the rest of your life, which is, you know, if you're posing Amazon as the alternative to that, then like, yes, give me the cocoa, give me the PJs. But I think that like, you know, whatever, I'm not trying to like suss out some sort of secret left politics in Hallmark movies, because it really just isn't there. But I do appreciate the work is bullshit and it's like not the purpose of life. Whenever they sneak that in there and it's not just like sort of coded as women lawyers should move home and start having kids, when it's more of like this type of thing where it's like an app literally drives a character insane in the film. Sure, that I'll allow. Like that's a fun little nudge, even if it's not a fully formed thought.
Yeah, it's fundamentally like this is a capital critique without marks or without like a literal practical interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount. It's just a bunch of observations that don't have a conclusion. So they state it, they're willing to flirt with it and explore it, but fundamentally you're just sitting there going, and?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Sounds like you're describing all of my blogs, Jeb. But I'm not going to take that personally. I think that is the correct assessment.
Open the door. You're right. You have your hand on the knob.
Yep.
It's time to rate this thing. As longtime listeners know, we have a 5-star rating system. 5 stars is basically a family movie that could be released in theaters. 4 stars is the juiciest taco, so named after the best food in Vancouver's wettest park. 3 stars, there are some solids. 2 stars, very soft cheese. 1 star, sugary and extremely wet. I could see you really kind of anywhere above a 2 and below a 5. Like there's a lot of half steps in there I would find plausible.
Yeah, so I settled on 3.5, which I think is generous. I think I like the performances. I did appreciate that the filmmaking was like decently inventive and that it was trying some shit. Like Hallmark tries more shit than it used to, but still doesn't necessarily try that much shit. And so like, I'll give them some credit for that. I sort of wish it was funnier. I think it suffers somewhat in comparison to Round and Round, which was the Hanukkah movie that we watched. And because that one it's similar in the sense that it's like, much of the way, that one is much more of the way, but much of the way to being like kind of a decently interesting little movie about how people think about the holidays and behave and stuff like that. But maybe it's just that Hanukkah, because Hallmark takes it less seriously, is the sort of thing that they're more comfortable kidding. Mm-hmm. The Christmas stuff in this can be a bit leaden, but I enjoyed watching it. And I really did appreciate that it was not just like another fucking Panettone rolling off the assembly line.
Yeah, I wanted to be as generous as that. I settled on a 3 because it was definitely above average. I want to celebrate and encourage they're doing different things. They did different things with the plot. They did different things with effects than they normally do. They did different things with perspective by being meta. But I think like the actual thing they built here is still kind of unsustainable. Like to take it to the Round and Round analogy, like we kept saying in that one, like if they just gave him a few million more dollars and sent them back for a week of rewrites. Yeah. Like that would have been just a straight up good movie. This thing, you're still going to need to do a teardown. Because like we haven't really talked about it, but the romance between Addie and Hunter is just not there.
Yeah.
There's not really anything that makes them have the connection that the plot forces them toward. So at the end, she kisses him and she admits that she did it just to see if she would turn back to Technicolor. Basically, her dad says, like, you know, you're not supposed to do things that you're supposed to, you know, like you've been running away from who you are because you keep chasing these goals that you think you're supposed to have. And that sort of unlocks their conversation. But as you're watching it, you're like, well, there's no basis for her to be like, I love you, kiss me.
Yeah.
And so when she admits it, like, I was doing it as a mechanism. I was trying to pull this lever and see what happened. That makes sense. But then they turn around and do it again anyway. And you're like, really? What happened in the intervening moment? Other than her dad giving her a pep talk of like, why don't you try dating this guy? But like, why don't you try dating this guy isn't, I'm in love and I'm filled with, warmth and this sense of spirit. It's like, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, that's a first date. That's not a like, well, let's get engaged. Fuck it.
Yeah. It's a very like Hallmarky thing where it's basically like the two most recognizable youngest actors in the film. But yeah, they don't even, it seems like you're right, that you're asked to fill in a lot of that. Like, I liked the two performances. I thought Lindsay Fonseca was perfectly charming. I always liked Michael Ratty.
Yes.
But they are in parallel. You're right that there's zero heat or chemistry between them. Not, I think, even by any fault of their performances, it's not like written that way.
Yeah.
Like, he's basically like talking her through a crisis, or too sad and withdrawn to communicate in any but the most curmudgeonly ways.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they don't like have, where would the flirtation have come from?
Right. And to the extent that they do have an intimate conversation, it's right at that mid hinge point where he's like, what's wrong with you?
Yes.
And
that's old, bad Hallmark stuff too. That is like Paul Green, 2014 type era.
Yeah. And we've seen, what was the one that with the actress who did City Girl and...
Oh, yeah. Sarah Ramos. What was that movie?
Wine Milf's Moonboat. Dream Cookies, Wine Milf's Moonboat.
Yes.
That one had the let's talk about what our shortcomings are, but it had those conversations empathetically and with a desire to connect. And this one was judgmental and something that created distance, not shared space, right? It's very much him sort of going like, well, have you thought about judging yourself? Because I have. And, I don't know why she would want to cleave to that kind of person. So yeah, there aren't really any of the moments where you think, hey, they're getting somewhere with each other. It's just like they're getting somewhere with solving the black and white problem.
Yeah, that's it's useful to remember like the good. I don't even know if we gave the Sarah Ramos one a 5, but like we both really liked it. And it was just exactly that. Like, it was a little bit more playful. And that one had plenty of fucking plot and business going on in it too. But like, yeah, you just have to trust the performers to kind of vibe with each other. And then like, as a viewer, especially maybe as a viewer of a Hallmark movie, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to have to do a little more work than usual here. But they have to give you some armature on which to hang all the tinsel. And that kind of is not in evidence in this case.
Yeah. Okay, then we're at the leftovers. We're at the end. It's the stuff that didn't go anywhere else or that we forgot or that we just like doing as a gimmick. David, you love doing the IMDb dive, and I want to hear what you have for this one because there are a lot of people with a lot of credits that are genuinely interesting, but they just didn't happen to intersect with movies that we've already done.
Yeah, so this is of the director of this, Dustin Reichert, is a busy Hallmark guy. And yet we haven't really seen very many of his movies before. We've seen, you watched with, I believe with Sarah Kate, Christmas at Graceland, which I think you thought was a piece of shit, right?
I think I saw that with Karen Geyer. Yeah, it was Twang Mess of Grace Lint, I think was the...
So he's done a lot of like, he's been a producer on a lot of them. He's directed fewer, but he was doing some agreeably grimy Westerns and motorcycle movies before he got into the Hallmark game and directing music videos for Kix Brooks of Brooks and Dunn, which
I'm more of a Dunn guy.
Yeah. I think we're all big Dunn guys here. So I've been chastised in the past for just clicking on one of these movies and then reading off all the goofy actors that are in it. And you're right to do it. I shouldn't be doing stuff like that. It doesn't matter if Don Swayze plays a character named Chael Lord in the movie Ambush at Dark Canyon. So
Chael
the one
Lord, that is a name that would have been in Anchorman, right?
Yes.
It has Dr. Chilm Richards.
Yeah. It has the feeling of the like the Productive Outs fake baseball names where they're like Wander Manchego has been designated for assignment or whatever. It has that element of it. The one that I will flag then in lieu of just reading you all the movies that this guy has made with like Ernie Hudson in them, just several. In 2012, Dustin Reichert made a movie. This is an incredible flex to me. Easy Rider 2.
Oh, sure.
Just trying it out. The Ride Home. Not sure that that's like considered such valuable IP that you'd get in trouble for just taking on Easy Rider 2. But it is for a movie that is basically like taking on this counterculture classic and then just being like, well, I'm going to do a version where Jeff Fahey plays a character named West Coast. Like, that's the mentality that I wish more filmmakers had. Just being like, yeah, sure, I'm going to do it. Why not?
Dave, I got 3 words for you. You ready?
Yep.
6 easy pieces.
Oh, fantastic. Let's do it. The second to last detail. So, one other bit that I want to flag from Easy Rider 2. It's a lot of like character actors playing like bikers and shit like that. Also, Johnny Bench is in it. That's it. I'm done. No more.
I had a few nitpicks and then one positive one that we can go out on. My nitpick is, or my first one is, at one point, Nick, at the end, when he's having that trauma swap with Addie, he says something about, speeding your way through life keeps people at arm's distance.
Nope.
Don't rewrite cliches.
Yep.
It's not like you're trying to evade the plagiarism software on that one. At arm's length is going to work. We all know what that means.
When you don't say it, it makes me feel weird.
Yes.
I feel like you should just say the thing everybody says.
And at the beginning, Addie's car starts, creaking and making guttering noises. And, this is just maybe me here. She starts hitting the steering wheel with the side of her fist. And that's not even a reasonable way of fake solving the problem. You beat the dashboard, for heaven's sakes.
I've got an ace up my sleeve.
Right? Yelling at it is even more plausible. How hard can you hit the steering wheel that it travels through the column, and some misfiring spark plug is like, well, shit, I'm going to get back to work. Right.
That's your problem right there.
Yeah.
You don't know how to punish your car.
And at the very opening of the movie is an outdoor scene with nothing but post-menopausal moms under fake snow and in front of obviously a CGI backdrop, listening to Addie speaking at a lectern, announcing what not Amazon is about to do. And I just wanted to point out, props for cutting the budget right here. It's all lit with CFL bulbs. It is the whitest light. It's meant to be overcast, right? So I can understand why they went for it, but it is just very much like you have pulled up to the loading dock at this Target.
Yeah. Not in the way either that Michael Clayton plays with lighting effects like that to make you feel the dreariness of someone's life. This is more just kind of turning on the lights at the bar.
Yeah, this is we got the CFL bulbs that were available commercially in 2008. We have not bought any that are currently at Home Depot. The ones that have yellow.
Yeah, these are just the little pigtail guys that make you feel like you're dying.
Yes, exactly. And then the thing I really liked was at one point when Nick is still completely resistant to the idea of Christmas, because now he's lost his wife and his son. They've gone Technicolor, and his daughter is still black and white, but she's insisting all this time about Christmas. And she mentions that there is such a thing as a Christmas tree. And Nick shouts,
Who ever heard of putting a pine tree in the middle of a living room?
Right you are.
Yep.
Right you are. That is a fire hazard.
He has another one of those where he's taking the stockings down from over the fireplace, and he's like, over the fireplace? Which is again, a good point, sir. I don't agree with you in how you're approaching this holiday, and yet you've really got an eye for questionable home safety decisions.
Right. Your family may not be very happy, but they're going to wake up tomorrow. Thank you, Nick.
It's important. You know what? When he's right, he's right.
He is. I think that's it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I'm going to wish you a Merry Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas.
Oh,
is that how you do it? I don't want to keep you at arm's distance by using phrasings that are unconventional.
I feel stuffed with happiness and dressed with festivity. So thank you.
Nice.
Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas to you, Dave.
Yeah, man. Back at you.
This episode of It's New Year's Town was executive produced by Mac Mashburn, Big Joe D, and all our friends down at the Jasper Group LLC, and by you, the Patreon donor, in conjunction with Vigorous Marvin. Vigorous Marvin. We remember Christmas so you can stay grayscale. Special thanks today to Drew Fairweather, a.k.a. Crudbump, for our theme music, and to Chris Collingwood of Look Park and Fountains of Wayne for all the rest, except where specified in the show notes. Like, subscribe, rate, and review us. It helps people find the show, and follow us on Blue Sky at itschristmastown.bsky.social. For around 80 hours of bonus material, including Fever Dream, our public health breakdown, and a day's worth of Hallmark podcasts, plunk down 10 cents per day at patreon.com/thisweekinatrocity. Thanks for listening, Merry Christmas, and talk to you soon.
It's not Hallmark Hall of Fame. It's not Hall of Fame. It's not that high quality. There's a Hall of Very Good. If there's a Hallmark Hall of Very Good, sure.
Fucking thing sucks!
That was good on the U there. That's solid.
Thank you.
Found that extra little bit of, you got to get it down in the like Foo Fighters part of your diaphragm to make it happen, but you were able to get there.
My roommate and I, for I would say 3 months, just spent entirely too much time reading the Onion column Walkin' in LA that they had, where the opening line is, "I love hot dogs. They're delicious." And then he goes on to, when I make a movie, my hot dogs are my co-stars. And you're like, all right, sure. And David Cronenberg didn't like hot dogs. He's a shitty director.
Honestly, the idea of writing something to be read in Christopher Walken's voice makes me miss like that version of media more than not more than the fact that the person that wrote it maybe had healthcare through having written it. Like, it's just cool. That's like a fun idea. And now that sort of thing is like maybe a post, but it's getting throttled because it's not about raw milk. It's just depressing. We used to have a whole literary economy. People enjoyed reading things.
I thought it was very brave because they trusted you as the reader to understand that the punctuation was there just as a suggestion.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't do it with where they just blanked out all the punctuation like Cormac McCarthy did or something. And because apparently that's what Walken does with his scripts. Like, he says, I go through and I remove it. And he sort of trusts himself to interpolate where the actual emphasis is. So I think The Onion was giving us as readers credence that we would know, Woody Allen on the, on the set of Annie Hall.
The idea of him removing all the commas and then just adding them in the way that David Bowie did cut-ups for lyrics, like just being like, I'm putting them in wherever I think they should go. Just is gratifying to me. I didn't realize that was his process. I thought he was just like that.
It makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I don't know. It does feel kind of like a retcon where he was like, listen, I don't have a really good explanation for why I'm constantly being taken by surprise by words in the middle of the sentence. So I'm just going to act like that was the beginning of a new sentence that I crafted in the middle of the one I was already reading.
I mean, honestly, if you have to come up with some reason, because it's a hard question to get asked. Like, if you're just out there, you're trying to do press for Dune 2, and someone's like, why do you talk like that? I've always wanted to ask you this. And that's happening on a junket. So you're getting that question 2-3 times an hour. I would want to come up with an answer as opposed to being like, it's just how I talk or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're talking about Christopher Walken because he is in this film. I don't know what version of it you watched, but he was wonderful in it.
He was Santa.
He did the whole dance from the Fatboy Slim video. There's the movie's slightly longer because there is a 5-minute old-timey razzle-dazzle showbiz dance sequence.
Could you take me home, please?